So when you think about housing, you can't help but also think about education. I mentioned how if we don't have good housing, companies won't come because their employees won't have places to live, but the same is true about our school systems. And we've worked really hard over the last several years to balance out and improve our school systems. And we've had some challenges in the polarization of our communities and our nation about what are proper history standards. What is it that we tell our children, teach our children in age appropriate ways? And also, what are the choices we have around using public school systems as the primary way to teach our children or having vouchers and other opportunities. The public school system is a wonderful system, but it has its problems, and there is investment that needs to be done. And I think, when I think about education, it is one of the great equalizers that nobody can take your education away. Both my parents were educators. My father was a math teacher. My mother worked for the Department of Education, and my grandparents were educators. In fact, my grandmother was the first Black teacher and Black principal in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and my grandfather was an instructor for the Tuskegee Airmen. And so while we are a family that comes from military and education, what we know is that when you learn something, you can't unlearn it. When a bell is rung, you can't unhear it. So we want to make sure that we continue working really hard to also educate parents and not just the children, and making a space and place for parents' voices to feel that they're heard and as part of the process. And I think one of the things that we hadn't done so well as just sort of broadly and generally is that we hadn't, and it's difficult, but parents historically we were hearing in some spaces in some parts of the Commonwealth didn't feel that their voices were heard, but part of that was because they weren't aware of what the processes were, and that's on the folks who need to make sure that parents have the information. So whether we're talking about, jobs, housing, education, transparency is so critical so that people have the information they need to make the best choices they can for themselves and their families, and particularly their children.